All right, and welcome to the driving range of the 2025 KPMG Women's PGA Championship. My name is Abby Parsons. I'm a PGA head golf professional out in Scottsdale, Arizona at Pinnacle Peak Country Club, and I am so excited to be here today for the live look-ins on this driving range. What about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ryan Adams, PGA of America golf professional as well, and yeah, we're back here on the driving range. We had a great session yesterday and looking forward to seeing some of the best golfers in the world. It's a little windy today, so we'll have a lot of tips and analysis and hopefully something you can take away for those at home.
Absolutely, and I was lucky enough to be on the golf course earlier following Lexi Thompson's group, and I have to say the wind has definitely stepped it up a notch, so I'm sure these players behind us are working on that today, and we can't wait to take a closer look. Yeah, so the range is going to be packed with some top players getting ready for the afternoon wave. Big names like Nelly Korda, Lydia Ko. It's going to be awesome. So we're looking forward to seeing that type of talent, seeing what they're going to work on today as they're out there. And don't forget, our comment section is open for any questions that you have about anything that you see today, any questions about your own golf game, but we are here to help as PGA coaches.
Yeah, and really excited too. We got a lot of star power out on the range this afternoon with Rose Zhang and Arya Jatanagarn, Nelly Korda, Lydia Ko, Gino Thitikul, Brooke Henderson. So it's going to be a fun afternoon of analysis for the two of us.
Absolutely. And a big thing that we noticed yesterday on the driving range was we did not see a lot of drivers. For it being such a long golf course and for the driver to be such an important club, clearly the irons and wedges were a main focus for a lot of these players. A lot of it probably has to do with the wind, but also knowing that they're going to have some important wedge shots and iron shots, especially if they have to chop it out of that thick rough today. Walking the golf course yesterday and today, I have to say whenever they would hit it in the rough, it was a very rare occasion if I could actually see the golf ball because it would just sink down. So I'm sure that's on their minds today. I'm sure we will see some drivers because obviously they want to hit those fairways to avoid that thick rough. But like I said, yesterday we saw a lot of wedges and a lot of irons on the driving range.
Yeah, and we also talked about how important it's going to be to find the fairway out there, and the players that will probably rise to the top of the leaderboard today will be in the fairway or have a way to find, if they're not accurate off the tee, they'll be able to hit a lot of greens because that's probably the formula for success, I would say. And the people at the top of the leaderboard have taken different paths. We've seen Lexi Thompson kind of climb up the leaderboard today. She's playing well. Gino yesterday, not as accurate off the tee, but really good on the greens, making more than 199 feet worth of putts, which is super impressive. So there's a lot of ways you can do it, but I think the way that people will find the most success is probably finding the fairway and hitting some greens. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I noticed today following the featured group was that when they were in the fairway, we saw almost tighter lies because the course is drying out a little bit due to the wind. And it became a little bit more difficult to hold these shots on the greens. This provides a challenge for these players because obviously they're going to try and go for that lower shot, that lower trajectory today because of the wind. But with that comes, it is way more difficult to hold those shots on the greens. So trying to find that right balance of figuring out where to land it, how to land it, see if you can hold anything. It's a huge challenge for these players. And with this golf course and this golf course design, there's a lot of trouble right in front of the greens. So it's not like you can hit it short and let it roll up. You have to be aware of that as well. I saw a lot of golf balls roll off the back, get into the rough, provide the players with difficult chip shots, difficult pitch shots. So figuring out a game plan for these approach shots today, especially on the driving range before they head out, is super pivotal for their day.
Yeah, no doubt. And as we started to get in here and do a little bit of analysis on some players, I think what you're going to see a lot on the range today is trying to find a controlled ball flight. A lot of them are taking abbreviated follow-throughs. They're trying to, make sure that they're finding a good shot shape to use out on the course.
Yeah, and we're actually going to start with Meline Sagstrom on the range right now. Like I said, we're seeing some iron play, not surprised. She's been here for a little while. We've noticed as we came here a little bit earlier, but she's working on kind of what Ryan said. She's already working on that abbreviated finish, working on flighting the golf ball. Super important for these iron shots today. And I mean, this driving range, they are dead into the wind right now. It is howling out here. It is great practice before they head out there. But you can see she's kind of rehearsing her impact position a little bit, her takeaway as well. She stays nice and loose over the ball before she hits it with a lot of movement. So let's see this move here. Yeah, same thing. It looks very compact swing. Looks like she's really trying to control her ball flight right now.
Yeah, and just, she has a launch monitor there trying to check out the spin rate and the numbers, and we'll get into that too with our top tracer range a little bit later. Yeah, nice pickup there with the hat blowing away. You can tell
awesome.
how windy it is. I mean, the wind today is directly, I'm kind of worried about those umbrellas behind Meline, but you also have to have some sun protection. So anyways, you can see her, she's pulling out a little bit of a longer club here. It looks like a fairway wood, and I think, we talked earlier about finding the fairway. I think, if driver starts to get a little wayward, which sometimes it does for some of these players, you immediately pull in a fairway wood or a fairway finder club that you're successful with, and that can be kind of your go-to play out on the course. A lot of the times, you might think, well, I need to hit driver off of every tee. But if you're struggling with your driver kind of like during the middle of the round, don't be afraid to pull out a 3-wood or a long hybrid or a 7-wood even. That's been a popular add to the bag for a lot of tour players. And find the accuracy. That's a better thing to emphasize versus distance.
We have our first question in the comments section. The question is, do players alter their ball flight or practice different ball flights depending on course conditions? And the answer is absolutely yes, especially here, as we've mentioned, and as you can see, it is very windy. They are going to be working on those different shot shapes, those different flight options. It's going to be different for when they're into the wind versus with the wind. So most definitely, they put the course conditions into play, but also the weather conditions. With this course, as it's drying out, it's going to play a little bit more firm and fast, but at the same time, this is a pretty grainy golf course. They like I mentioned earlier, they would love to see that green hold the golf ball, but it's going to be very difficult with this wind. It's going to be very difficult as these greens dry out. So you will absolutely see players practicing different flight options here. They're going to be flighting some wedges. Like Ryan mentioned earlier, you're going to see that in their abbreviated finishes. So as you see these players kind of finishing low, finishing a little bit shorter than a full finish, that is them working on their flighted shots.
Yeah, I think that also too, as the wind picks up, you might see a few players change their bag makeup a little bit. They might go to something that flies a little bit lower, maybe some irons versus a fairway wood or a hybrid that goes a little bit higher. So it wouldn't surprise me to see, if the wind continues to be consistent, that you change the club makeup a little bit in your bag. But yeah, I would agree with Abby. Like, you need to adjust for the conditions that the course and the the temperature and the wind presents. So it's definitely something that plays a factor.
Absolutely. And you can see the flags in the shots. You can see how much wind they're working with right now. And it is expected to get even stronger out there for the golfers. But you'll even see with hybrids and woods, they're going to work on those stinger shots. They're going to work on those lower shots for off the tee, like Ryan mentioned earlier, if their driver's not going their way. And there's a couple holes out there where they have to hit a shorter club than driver. So you'll see a lot of those out here as well.
Yeah, and as we kind of go back to Meline here, still working on that 3-wood. So that tells me that she's probably trying to find a club that she can rely on, and I think you'll see that a lot with the players out here on the range, is just what club can be my go-to club in case things kind of go awry, especially as the wind picks up. Driver might be something that starts to maybe fail them a little bit, so they need something that they can be confident in.
Absolutely, and you can see she's chatting with her caddy here, probably talking about their different ball flight options with this club. There are in all par 5s, almost all of them, there's one that is reachable, but they have to lay up with woods. They're so long. But we're going to switch gears. We're actually going to take a look into Meline Khang and her practice routine before she heads out for the second round of the day. She's got a wood out as well, Ryan.
Yeah, and you know, Megan a little bit different of a swing than Meline. You can see the takeaway there. A little bit of a stronger grip. The forearms are a little bit more, you know, they're not as loose as maybe you would like to see. But that, you know, what we talked about this yesterday, right? Like, you got to swing a swing that fits you first, and not, you know, what's maybe the most technically or fundamentally sound. Right? That's always my advice, and I'm sure some PGA coaches agree. Is like, you have to pick a swing that fits you, and then we can work on the technicalities and the fundamentals and implement those into your swing. So, yeah, you can see the takeaway motion here. She's just trying to make sure the club gets off to a good start, and then a nice follow through, and her belt buckle points right at the target. So I think a lot of the things that amateurs struggle with sometimes is finishing their golf swing. They want to try to help the ball up, and that doesn't allow their hips to get all the way through. They come down too steep and they go too far around. So if belt buckle pointing at your target, or your belly button pointing at your target, whatever you want to use as a reference point, is always a good way to finish your swing.
Absolutely. You can see she has a wide base here.
Yep.
With a fairway wood in her hand. One tip that I give to people just now getting into the game, or they don't know the difference between each setup with each club, I always say the further away you are from the hole or the green, the further apart your feet should be. So if I have a driver out, obviously I'm pretty darn far away from the hole, so I'm going to have the widest stance I can with that one. When I'm closer to the hole, I have a wedge in hand. My feet are going to be closer together, more shoulder width apart, maybe even a little bit more narrow, so I can stay over the ball. And you can see here, she's going to have a really wide stance. Looks like she just brought out her driver, so we can see she's got a powerful swing. She doesn't appear to be the tallest person I've ever seen, so she's small but mighty. She's going to have a lot of power with her lower body. Like Ryan said, she turns to the target really nicely with her lower body, gets that belly button to the target. And you can see she really generates power from the ground up. You can see a lot of stability when she holds her finish as well. She's not off balance. She's not falling on her back foot. It looks really consistent.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, with the driver today, the most important thing is going to be finding a shot shape that works best for you. The Fields Ranch East, there's a lot of holes that kind of meander left and meander right. You need to pick a target and then commit to a certain shot shape, right? So you can see her standing behind the ball here. She's like, okay, I'm going to hit a little bit of a cut, or I'm going to hit a little bit of a draw. And that's what I'm going to try to stick to for most of my round, because if I start doing shots that I'm not comfortable with, or shots that I saw on the driving range, then I might get a little bit off kilter. So, and you saw in that swing, like, there's no rush to her swing either. Abby said that she's, you know, very stable and very balanced. That's a good reference point, is like, there's no need to rush your way to impact, right? Like, you need to build up that speed versus whipping the club back and trying to get back down as fast as possible. I think, you know, some amateur golfers struggle with that tempo a little bit. So if we watch, when we're watching Meline Khang, she has the biggest club in her bag, but she's in no rush to get to impact. So
exactly. And don't forget, we are accepting all types of questions in the comment section about what you're seeing here, anything about your own golf game. If you have questions about what we're going to see this week on the golf course as well. But for now, we'll keep watching Meline Khang hit some drivers. I will say it looks like she almost loads her weight, or pushes her weight onto her target side foot a little bit earlier than most players. It's almost like right as she gets up to the top, you can see her body lean a little bit. I'm seeing that a lot more out of younger players, out of junior golfers, trying to work on generating more distance and generating more power. So seeing this out of her too is pretty cool to watch. I think she's probably working on hitting that driver a little bit lower since she's pounding it into the wind at the moment, but very consistent, like we said, very stable, and it looks really good out of Meline Khang.
Yeah, and you know, we notice, you know, something else about the grip, and a little bit of a stronger grip. And you know, when you think about stronger or weaker grip, you can see more of the glove logo if it's stronger and less of it if it's weaker. And there's not necessarily like a grip that everyone should use. I think the grip is your only connection to the club, so it should be something that feels comfortable to you, right? And Megan's is a little bit stronger. We'll see different grips throughout the afternoon out here on the range. So I think it's important to fit a grip that fits you the best, and not necessarily if you hear more about a stronger grip or more about a weaker grip, that's the one you should try. Like, work with your PGA coach to get a grip that fits you best.
Absolutely. And kind of like what you mentioned earlier, one thing about her grip, her target side arm definitely looks a little bit more tense, looks a little bit straighter, almost hyperextended at address. And like we said, this works for her, which is great. I mean, she's on tour. Wouldn't recommend adding any tension to your golf swing if you're getting into a golfer or you're trying to get your handicap down a little bit. But it works for her. She keeps that target side arm straight as she takes it away, and that helps a lot of players, especially get that right set position on top of the backswing. But it looks like she is just now finishing up her practice session now.
Yeah, and you can see again that flag at the front of the range here just whipping pretty good, and that, I mean, it's 12:45 here in Frisco, Texas, and so we haven't even hit the peak of that wind probably.
Yeah, and we do have a question. How much do tour players practice their swings week of a major versus not a major? Like, how much are they working on their swings? And I can tell you, you're definitely not trying to find anything the week of a major, especially the Wednesday before, that's for sure. The week of the major, you got to focus on the big event, the competition. Obviously, if you're struggling with your swing, maybe one little band-aid that can help you get through the week, but major championship weeks are definitely not the time to be going through any sort of swing change. Now, they're definitely practicing, trying to get used to whatever conditions they're going to be seeing that week, because obviously it is a major championship. What do you think, Ryan? Yeah,
no, definitely. And, yesterday we were watching Georgia Hall on the driving range, and she, I think it was like 10 minutes before her tee time. Had someone watching her with the camera. She was looking at her phone at her swing. She was trying, you could tell she was trying to find something, anything to get me through, the next couple of days. And I think, Abby's right, where if you don't necessarily want to, you're not trying to overhaul your swing during a major, right? But if there's something, a little band-aid sort of fix that you need to kind of get you through the week and on to, the next week where you can maybe work with your coach to get a few more swing changes in, I think that's the way to do it. But definitely, these players, their swings are all pretty fundamentally sound, so unless something really bad has been happening the last couple of weeks, I wouldn't anticipate seeing any big changes.
Yeah, and next we're actually going to switch gears to somebody like ourselves, PGA coach Joanna Co, part of the Corebridge financial team, representing all PGA coaches out there. She is an incredible player. It is always great to see PGA coaches like herself showcase, yes, I can teach the game all day, while she teaches at Marion as the director of instruction in a phenomenal facility there, and still be so good at golf. She has great feel, she has great fundamentals, she has a lot of power too, and her knowledge of the game definitely helps her on any major stage.
Yeah, definitely, and it's great to see, Joanna's one of the 10 PGA and LPGA golf professionals in the field here, going off this afternoon, trying to make the cut, and that's always a fun watch for us, is to see one of our fellow PGA members trying to play the weekend at a major. So, and Joanna's just kind of coming back, actually, into form a little bit. She had a baby girl, Jenny, who just turned 1. Joanna was telling us, and so now she's always been a great player, and now I think she's now that she's all good with Jenny, and being a mom out here on tour is really a cool story for us to follow. But I'm excited to see what Joanna has in store for us, and you can see here that she's just doing a few rotational stretches. I think this is the best thing you can probably do before you hit some balls with some rotation stuff.
Yeah, we're going to give Joanna some time to rotate and stretch to herself. We're actually going to switch gears to Allisen Corpuz, who's already practicing, getting ready for the day. But no, Joanna's definitely showcasing that stretching is important, a lot of body motion, a lot of good drills. But Allison's been on the range for a little bit. She's got an iron in her hand, maybe even a wedge. Like we said, it's going to be a very common thing to see this club selection on the driving range today as they gear up for these windy conditions.
Yeah, and Allisen, obviously U.S. Open champion, and probably looking to add to that major title list this week here at Fields Ranch East. And I've always admired her. She loves to kind of dig it out of the dirt, right? And she always is trying to find something. Whether it's trying to fix a swing flaw or something like that. She's really someone who grinds and works hard. So it's fun to watch Allisen kind of take on the range here, and we'll watch. Looks like she has a shorter club and just trying to work on getting the feels down with it. Obviously there's not a litany of scoring opportunities out here, but there's a few that you have to take advantage of, right? The par fives, the third shots in. Some of the par threes are a little bit shorter, maybe a few of the par fours. But when you have a wedge in your hand, that's a go sign for these players, right? Like they need to be within 15 feet of the hole. So trying to probably dial in that distance a little bit with her shorter clubs.
Yeah, one thing I really like about her golf swing is how much lag she has. If you don't know at home, lag is basically the club falling behind you as you turn your body to the target. We try to avoid rushing the club down with our arms. We see that a lot out of amateurs, but Allisen is showing a great tempo, great lag in her downswing. You can see her body turns to the target. That club's still far behind her. That not only helps with her tempo, but it also helps with distance. You definitely hit it out further if you have that lag. And it looks like she's switching gears now to a hybrid. Like we said, we're going to see a lot of those today as well. A lot of those yesterday, a lot of those today, a lot of those all weekend. And you can tell probably from some experiences she had on the golf course yesterday, she's going to work on getting this hybrid dialed.
Yep. Yeah, and just kind of following up about your point about lag is a good power generator, but it doesn't work unless your body is in the right positions, right? So if you go to the top and you have a full turn, and then you come down and you have a little bit of lag, you need to open up those hips a little bit in order for them to clear out and the club head to square up and utilize that lag power that you generate, right? And Allisen does a nice job of that, where you saw there, she turns through, belt buckle or the button on her shorts pointing right towards the target, right? And you can see her kind of feeling that impact position. She just did that little motion there, yeah. She's trying to feel, I'm squaring up at impact. Like I have a little bit of lag, but I'm not, going out to the right with my hips or kind of coming over the top. I'm clearing them out of the way so that my lower body's out of the way and I can square it up with the back of that club logo, right? So.
Real quick, we do have the top tracer technology now too, and so this type of technology really helps dial in their distances, figure out what their ball speed is, their carry. Super important for this week. So definitely take a look at that. It's super helpful and it's great technology, especially for people at home to see not only how consistent these players are, but what kind of yardage difference they have between each club. Now, Ryan, I think she took it away, but why do you think she had a glove under her left arm?
Yeah, I think, that's a good drill for those maybe struggling with feeling connected at home, is that when you have that glove underneath your arm, you're trying to feel like you're maintaining a triangle between your hands and your shoulders, right? And if you kind of, that triangle kind of gets busted up during the swing, it's hard for you to be back at impact square, right? You're not as connected. So she has a glove underneath her arm just to kind of feel that connectivity, keep that triangle between her hands and her shoulders intact. And that'll allow you to kind of feel what it feels like to be centered up and squared at impact. And I think, what happens is if the glove falls out of, underneath your arm, then it's a sign that maybe you're not connected and you're a little bit disconnected. You need to kind of focus on a little bit more of a straight back takeaway and full turn, and then kind of trying to clear that lower body out so that glove stays underneath the arm.
Yeah, and you can see even in our coverage, Allisen keeps looking up at her Jumbotron here, trying to look at her top tracer stats, which is super helpful for the players as well. If they don't have any sort of devices with them to help them, they're looking up at this Jumbotron. They're looking up at this big screen because all of her stats are up there for everybody to see right now. But it looks like she is changing clubs, maybe more towards a wood. I can't tell if it's a wood or a hybrid still.
Yeah, looks like a hybrid still. And she's got the glove back out, so obviously, Allisen is chatting with her caddy and coach there and just trying to, what do you see? And, it's not necessarily, we talked about, what do players do during major championships, right, during their warm-up, right? Like, this is not, to me, this isn't I'm overhauling my swing before I go tee off. This is like a check and a balance, right, where I'm putting the glove underneath my arm just to make sure that everything is okay, right? And so I think this isn't one of those drills that like is very overhaul-y, I would call it. This is more just like I'm just making sure everything's in a good spot and I'm ready to go before I go tee off.
Yeah, this could be part of her routine for all her longer clubs anyway. So it's cool to see the players kind of stick to that, and even right before she's teeing off for round two, having that little fix of having the glove under her armpit. That's going to be a great feel for her as she repeats this motion before she heads out onto the course. She's not trying to change anything. I think she's more working on a feel. Just seeing, okay, this helps me feel more connected. I need to take that onto the golf course.
Yep, exactly, yeah. And, I think for those at home, maybe wondering, do I give this drill a try? Yeah, maybe not, before you go tee off at your next round. If it's something new, maybe take it, ask your PGA coach if it would help you, or maybe go to the range and work on it with a few practice swings, not necessarily hitting a bunch of balls with a glove underneath your arm. But yeah, give it a try. I think it's a great drill, or a great checkpoint for connectivity. So.
Absolutely. And don't forget, our comment section is open for any questions that you have at home, any questions you have about their golf swings, their golf game, your own golf game, your own golf swing. We are happy to help here as PGA coaches. And she is going through the bag right now, at least going through the bag with the head covers, that's for sure. She looks like she's onto a wood now. But one thing I really like about her swing as well is the lack of sway away from the ball as she takes the club back. A really important thing for all of you at home to work on is making sure your spine and your sternum does not leave the golf ball as you take the club back. A lot of people think, oh, I'm getting a really deep turn, but in reality, your body is leaving the golf ball. Where your club bottoms out is going to change the second you change that spine angle, and the second you change where your spine is over the golf ball. So watch her as she takes her club back. She's really good about staying directly over the ball, not a lot of movement, but she still rotates great, which is always the goal.
Yep. Yeah, and you saw there, going behind the ball, trying to visualize, now that she's probably working up into the woods and the driver, we're off of like feeling thing, or well, I guess she still has the glove underneath.
Still feeling it.
yeah, which is fine. Like I'm not, if I was her coach, I wouldn't be like, what are you doing? Like, we do this drill when we're warming up or we're practicing. So obviously it's part of her routine, and we love that, right? Like, everyone should establish a range routine before they go out and to the course, right? And if part of her range routine is having that glove, totally fine, right? So going back to the wood, and you saw her kind of going back to behind the ball, just trying to visualize where the shot is going, right? And she's hitting a lot of, off the ground with the wood, and, it's probably going to come out a little bit lower, which is totally fine. I mean, the wind is, 15, 20 miles an hour straight into her at the moment on the range. So starting something a little bit lower and not trying to get tossed up in the wind with too much spin. And I wouldn't be surprised if she uses this club a lot today.
Absolutely, especially with this wind, like you mentioned. Having the glove under the arm, going through these longer clubs, this most definitely can be part of her routine, right? And I think she kind of needs more of that connected feel with these conditions anyway. I mean, you can see how windy it is out here. I saw some people struggling with some umbrellas behind her earlier, so it's good to see her working on these longer clubs. She's going to need them today. Very long par fives, long par fours, and there's some short par fours where she's going to absolutely have to hit this club off the tee, like we mentioned earlier. But kind of as Ryan touched on, you can see she's going for targets. We can't stress it enough, and you'll hear me harp on it a million times. You have to pick out a target when you're on the driving range. Do not just aim and shoot and point aimlessly. Like, you have to just find your target, stick to it. I hate hearing, and every PGA coach hears, when you ask your student, where are you aiming, and they say middle.
Down the
or
middle.
Center. Yeah, I'm like, well, you're not, first of all. And second of all, that is not how it works on the golf course. We have things to aim at out there. So making sure that you have a target for each club, because obviously every club's going to go a different distance, and you can tell these players, try to find a target that best suits the distance with each club out here.
Yeah, definitely. And we talked earlier about Megan Khang's a little bit stronger of a grip. You see Allison's grip here is a little bit more neutral, I would call it, with less of the glove logo showing, the glove logo pointing more towards her target. And looks like we're pulling out. Yep, comes a big stick. Love the head cover too. I love that. Now just trying to, I would assume that first hole, this is the club she's going to be using off the tee, right? Or if she's, first shot is usually with the driver. So just trying to dial this one in now.
And as we're finishing up with Allisen, we're gonna turn over to Maya Stark, which a lot of people know that name right now, obviously coming off of a win from the U.S. Open. And her PGA coach is actually the teacher of the year at the moment, Joe Hallett. So it's pretty cool to see the U.S. Open champion, the current U.S. Open champion, working with the PGA Teacher of the Year, PGA Coach of the Year, Joe Hallett. So watching what these two are working on, they're all smiles right now. We mentioned this earlier, we mentioned this yesterday. PGA coaches are more than just swing coaches, okay? They get you into your right mental game. They can be your therapist, they can be your friend, and you can see that between the two of them. They have, looks like a great dynamic, helpful but still fun, and just making sure that she's in the right headspace before she heads out to this next round, coming off of that U.S. Open championship.
Yep, and I mean, this is awesome, right? Like, Joe is, I know Joe pretty well. He's given me, when he came to the PGA of America headquarters, he gave me a lesson when he did his Master Professional, to get his Master Professional status, and it was an awesome experience, and I'm sure, you know, I assume what he told me is what he kind of tells his students, right, or any other student, is he's more about, like, making sure things are in a good spot, you're having fun, you're hitting great shots, like, but it's all part of the process, right? And like, we're gonna work together on this. Like, you're not on your own. I'm your coach, I'm your guide, and I'm gonna make sure that you're hitting the ball the best that you can. And you know, we saw that with Maya's win at the U.S. Open, as things started coming together, right? And she credited Joe with, you know, just making her, you know, think a little bit more about her swing, but also making sure that she's in a positive spirit and she's trying to go about her round, because it can get, you know, a golf round can get off kilter a little bit. And you know, Joe is someone who's really positive and has a lot of optimism, and so anytime you can inject a little bit of that, sometimes it's not all, a coach isn't just all, you know, technique and fundamentals. They can be someone that can be, you know, a buoy for you when it comes to when maybe you're not hitting the ball straight too.
Yeah, let's talk about who else Joe has taught and is currently teaching. I mean, Stacy Lewis, he got her to #1 player in the world, and now he's currently teaching Lexi Thompson, who is battling it out there on the golf course right now, having a great round. 3 very different golf swings, 3 very different golf games between Maya, Lexi, and Stacy. It just showcases how versatile PGA coaches can be. PGA coaches, we're not here to make everyone's swing look the same. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked by a student, just make my swing look like Adam Scott's, or just make my swing look like Nelly Korda's. No, we're going to make sure you're swinging your own swing, and we're going to help you fine-tune that so it fits you best. That Adam Scott swing, that Nelly Korda swing might not fit you, and you can definitely tell Joe has that mindset too. And he was actually on featured group coverage as well yesterday, and he talked about that. He's like, no, I know Lexi's swing. I know that she doesn't have a normal swing, and I'm not here to change that. I'm here to just work with it. And he does a great job at that. I know he tweaked something just about a week ago that's really helped her, especially off the tee, helped Lexi off the tee. So it's pretty cool that he is working with Maya and obviously Lexi, and then got Stacy Lewis to that #1 spot in the world. He's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and you know, you love to see Maya smiling a little bit. Joe probably keeping it light out on the driving range. But I really like, you know, as you look at her swing here, she's very balanced. She's very centered over the golf ball. She's not leaning too far back or too far forward. She's very, you know, the center point of my body is also the center point of the golf ball, right? And I think sometimes, you know, amateur golfers kind of get a little behind the ball too much, or a little bit in front of the ball too much, and you might chunk it or you might top it or whatever. Look at this angle that we have of Maya, and you can see that she's very, you know, centered over the golf ball. There's not a lot of like wayward movement. When she turns back, you'll see it on the backswing, and when she comes down, she's very, you know, ball's in the middle of my stance. She might move it a little bit further up as she gets with longer clubs, just so she can swing up on a little bit more. But I've always enjoyed how her posture and her stance is just very, you know, balanced. There's not a lot of wasted movement when it comes to Maya.
Absolutely, she's super stable, very consistent. It's a swing that I want a lot of people to take notes on. Like you said, she doesn't have a lot of movement going on. There's not a lot of moving parts, which helps things stay consistent. If you have a bunch of sways going on and loops and all of that fun stuff, now that could be a great workout, but we're trying to keep things a little bit more simple, and she has a lot of simplicity to here. As you can see, her and Joe are still laughing it up, still having a good time out there. But it's really cool to see that dynamic and how happy they are together and how much fun they have together as she's warming up for this second round here. She has an iron out, big shock. Everybody's having some irons out right now. There's a lot of that with this wind, but her swing is perfect for this wind. I think she's going to have she's going to be really successful keeping that ball low with her swing. and I'm excited to see what she does today.
Yeah, same here. And you can see Jo is just kind of, probably, she's asking a few questions, like, trying to keep it light, which I love. It's always nice to have, someone there to kind of support you and stuff. But, as we watch Maya swing here, you can see her, again, like we said, very balanced, neutral grip. It also makes a nice full turn on that backswing, right, and then a full follow-through. So we already kind of talked about the finish, but that backswing, too, is also super important. So it's great to see, something you can learn from Maya is that full turn backswing where she has her shoulder underneath her chin and making sure that she's got the most amount of power she can get out of each swing.
Yeah, Jo is actually known for his dad jokes out there. So you can definitely tell he's dropping some of those on the driving range right now with her. He's all about keeping it light. And he has said in interviews before, obviously right after her win at the U.S. Open, you are not out here to fix anything. You're not out here to change anything right before a major championship. He's a big proponent of, no, we're just fine-tuning. We're just making sure she's playing with what she has and at her best ability. So it's great to see him out here just keeping the mood light. Like we said, it can be so hard, especially if you're coming off a not-so-great round or a round you're not happy with. Going into the second round with a better attitude. Like I mentioned earlier, PGA coaches are a lot more than just swing coaches. And so it's very cool to see that those dad jokes are working on Maya as she's working on her iron play here. But her warm-up, honestly, so far has been pretty consistent. She's just sticking with the irons right now, working on that. Like we mentioned earlier, this driving range is absolutely dead into the wind. And I was lucky enough to be on the golf course earlier, walking the front nine with the Lexi Thompson group, and the wind is a lot stronger than yesterday. It's going to make a lot of approach shots a lot more difficult than yesterday as well, so I'm sure all these players are keeping that in mind as they're warming up.
Yeah, definitely. And as Maya kind of works through the bag here, we can we'll watch kind of how she sets up here, and you might notice that her hands are a little bit closer to her body, and there might be a question maybe of how close my hands need to be to my body. Well, it depends on, first of all, like how tall you are and your posture. If you like to stand a little bit more upright or you're a little bit more over the ball. Maya's a little bit more over the ball, it seems. So I think, and that closer to the hands to her body feeling feels good for her, right? So I think it's important to make sure that, wherever you're at with the hands, if it feels comfortable and normal, that's where you should be, not necessarily where a tour pro is, right? So
yeah, let's talk about the difference in setup between Maya and Megan Khang, who we saw earlier. We talked about Megan Khang had a little bit more attention when she was setting up to the ball with that. Her front arm and her grip was a lot stronger. Meanwhile, Maya is very relaxed at address, keeping those hands closer to her body. You can see there's no tension in her arms. Highly recommend this type of setup because you want to avoid any added tension possible. But such a big difference between those two golfers in their setup, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, one of the things that Joe's probably working on a lot with Maya is that takeaway too. I know that he's a big proponent of that and making sure that the club is taken away straight back and then you make your turn versus having that club get yanked inside, and then it's hard really to kind of get squared back up, and it's it's tricky because you got to get the ball or your club head back on plane. And I think listening to some tunes here, I love that. And so probably as we see her get into the woods here, making sure that takeaway is focused and Joe's locking in on that. Yeah, you saw her just kind of do a little takeaway drill there, and be interesting to see how she does today.
All right, we have a fan question right now. What are some good drills for working on alignment? Great question. I'm sure you just heard me harping on how important it is to be aiming at something on the driving range. Drill-wise, I mean, the most common thing we see and the thing that we recommend the most is obviously alignment sticks, right? If you're getting new to the game or trying to figure out what even alignment is, where the club face aims is your target line, right? That is where you want the ball to go. Where my club face is going, that is where I want the ball to go. Now, a lot of people think, okay, my feet also have to be aimed exactly at that same point. If you put an alignment stick down on your toes, and then if you put an alignment stick down on where your club face is pointing, they should look like railroad tracks. They should be parallel lines. If you see your toe alignment stick start pointing closer and getting a little bit more perpendicular to that target line, that tells you your alignment is off. We do not need those toes pointing exactly at where you're aiming. They're just going to be parallel left of them if you're right-handed and parallel right of them if you are left-handed. So it's really important to know what even alignment is, because a lot of players think, oh, I'm aimed right at my target, and they are 40 yards right of it. and I see 40 yards left of it. I mean, I see all sorts of things. So making sure you start with those alignment sticks, get those railroad tracks. If you don't have alignment sticks, clubs work as well, obviously. They're just long stick-like objects, so highly recommend that for working on alignment and just learning what it is. Another thing on top of that I cannot recommend enough is getting an intermediate target. Finding something directly in front of you to aim at with your club face. Now, aiming at something 300 yards out is a lot more difficult than aiming at something that is 3 feet away from you. So highly recommend finding that small target in front of you. And I know we are switching to Lydia Ko here shortly as well as she starts to warm up. But do you have any thoughts on alignment as well, Ryan?
Yeah, I think, quickly that the alignment is important for both your feet on the ground and your shoulders, right? You want to make sure both of those things are lined up. So have the alignment stick or a golf club set down on your feet, make sure you're aligned there, and then put a club across your shoulders or another alignment stick and make sure that that matches up with what's below at your feet, because if your shoulders are pointing to the right and your feet are pointing to the left, you're out of whack, right? You want to make sure those things are synced up, and you'll see that a lot today where players on their shoulders and their feet are pointing at the same direction.
Yeah, now we have Lydia Ko here. She's warming up. Now I have to say she's been warming up for a little while, and I've been keeping an eye on her because she's pretty close to us right now. Her warm-up routine is not a normal one. I'm going to be completely honest. She had a lot of resistance bands going on. The person that's massaging her arms, they were doing workouts together, movements together to get her body ready. Obviously, this is priority number one when you're on the driving range, making sure your body's warmed up before you start hitting the golf ball. I mentioned this yesterday while we were watching the driving range coverage. My body hurts when people just walk onto the driving range, take out driver, and just start bombing drives. My body hurts thinking about that now, actually. So seeing Lydia do this, seeing her go through a very intricate, very intense warm-up routine before she even picks up a club, it just goes to show she is one of the best players in the world. She is an LPGA Tour Hall of Famer, and this is what she's doing before she hits a single shot. So it just goes to show people at home, please warm up your body before you swing. It is so hot out here too, and you'd think, oh, it's warm out, my body's warm. It is not. So making sure you got some body movement drills. Not all of us are lucky enough to have a massage before, but it's cool to see that this is part of her routine.
Yep. Yeah, no, we were watching her and Maya at the same time, and she had some resistance bands around her legs doing a little back and forth movement. And it's important to get your lower body warmed up a little bit because that's the engine under your golf swing, right? That's where you get the most power. A lot of people think, well, I can just use my hands and my arms to get all the power, right? It's like, no, you use the ground and your lower body to warm up, right? And so I like that she had those resistance bands, and she's getting the lower back warmed up here. There's a lot of rotation in the golf swing, so making sure that that's in a good spot. But I really think, if you're thinking about, like, how do I do this at home, make sure, on PGA.com, we have a lot of PGA coaches like Abby and I who have golf fitness background, and we have a lot of stretching articles, so head there if you need something before you go out and play this weekend. But also make sure to focus on the lower body, because that's where a lot of your power comes from. So
yeah, and all these players out here, if not most of them, they have physios. They get their bodies ready with a professional to make sure they're ready to take on a major championship field. This is not just a normal day on the golf course, okay? Mm-hmm. It's just not a round with friends. They got to take this completely seriously, making sure their body is completely ready before they even hit the driving range. So watching the massaging happening, watching her get her body movement drills, it's pretty cool to see that a player like her, who you look at her and be like, oh, she's limber, it's warm out, she's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. She is taking it to another level to make sure that she is ready to take on this golf course today.
Yep, yeah, and as we see her kind of move out of her stretching routine and into some one-handed swings here at the wedge, we did see, I believe her caddy was out in the middle of the range getting the distances too, and making sure that, firing back to where Lydia was and making sure that they had the right distances. So, it's important to get your swing right here as we watch her warm up a little bit.
Yeah, her caddy actually put 8 cones out on the driving range. She's going to the first cone right now. We saw it earlier. He was walking out there, pacing things out, using his rangefinder to get the exact distances. So I assume all of these cones are her warm-up yardages with her wedges. She's going to the first cone now. She's headed to the second cone. Obviously super consistent. She's ending it right by the cone, which is pretty darn impressive. Give me a bucket of golf balls, it would take me forever to figure that one out. But having this consistent yardage, I assume this is probably a part of her routine every day. So it's cool to see her caddy take it to another level and be like, oh, I got to make sure my player's warmed up properly. I'm going to get these cones out there. It was not the most safe thing I've seen in the world, him walking out there, putting these cones out there, but it's cool to see that this is part of her routine. This is her warming up with her wedges, getting those distances dialed to another level.
Yeah, and you're going to need to have those distances dialed for the shots around the green, because a lot of these require these low checking shots to make it over trouble, but also check up nicely so it gets near the hole. You don't want to hit it really high because it might get caught up in the wind. You want to have it so it's like a little low driving shot. So she's got, I would say, the cones are set up probably, 10 yards apart from each other. They're probably at, I would guess, like 20, 30, 40, 50 yards, 60 yards, all the way out to the first set of flags. And so she'll probably just work her way through all those, but I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to do a little bit of a mix up too, where one is short and then I go longer and then another one is in between, right? And just making sure that all of those distances are dialed in versus just one target.
Yeah, as Lydia's working on those wedges, we are seeing Nelly Korda arrive, obviously a player that everyone loves to watch, a fan favorite. You can see a group of people swarming to the driving range right now just to get a glimpse of this glorious golf swing. Best player in the world right now. I mean, she is unreal. She's so fun to watch, and she has a golf swing that I could only dream of. So consistent. She's so, everyone kind of knows that she's tall, she's limber, so it's the perfect build for the type of golf swing she has. Not everyone has the same build, not everyone's going to have the same golf swing, but she has one that is just meant for this game. Now, I do have to joke, I know we just got done talking about Lydia, but I'm scared these cones are going to blow away. This wind is picking up so much. I don't want that caddy to have to run all over the place to grab those. But it's cool to be so close to her right now too, because we have a great look at Nelly right in front of us. It'll be fun to watch to see what her warm-up routine is like, and I'm sure a lot of you at home want to know, what does Nelly do to get into the zone? What does Nelly do to get ready for the second round of a major championship? She had a pretty good round yesterday. She's not out of it. Nelly's never out of it, it feels like. She's a great player. She always comes from behind as well, and she's a great leader. So she has it all going for her. She'll be fun to watch warm up.
Yeah, one of the best parts about being at a driving range during a major championship is seeing all the different types of great swings. So we just saw Lydia Ko. Now we're on to Nelly Korda. And the first thing you saw when Nelly Korda arrived at the range, set down an alignment stick. So what does that mean? I'm focusing on alignment, right? And you saw there too, maybe a little bit of a grip, taking a peek at the grip, making sure everything is okay. And I know that she has PGA coach Jamie Mulligan, always kind of watching her swing. Jamie's not there at the moment, but always good to have someone keeping an eye on your swing. And so she has the launch monitor out, making sure that she's dialed in with the distances, and probably in a similar vein to Lydia, just working on those short clubs, those wedges, half swings, full, three-quarter swings. And we talked about this yesterday, but, someone asked, where do I start my range session, right? And I would recommend you start with these clubs. We've seen a lot of players do this already, where you're just trying to get that tempo down, trying to hit the center of the club face, trying to get the full finish. It's easier to do that with that club than a 4-iron or a driver, right? Like then you at least got your tempo down, your feels, and then you can work your way up through the bag.
Yeah, I wonder if she's going to try to use some of Lydia's cones here, because she's right by him too. But Jamie Mulligan, like you mentioned earlier, also coach of Patrick Cantlay, so 2 really great golf swings. But yeah, she's just getting warmed up, getting these wedges dialed, abbreviated finish, flighting those wedges.
No wasted motion. And then like a feeling of, you saw that she just, touched her tummy there, just trying to make sure that she's all the way through, right? And if maybe I was pointed too far left or too far right, then maybe my finish isn't as good as it needs to be. But there's no wasted motion in Nelly's swing either. You see her feet kind of never leave the ground, or she's not trying to help the ball up. She's just slowly moving back and through the ball and turning those hips out of the way so she can square up with that glove logo pointed directly at the ball.
Yeah, and I have to... I have to say, as a girl, as a fellow female, her hair choice is perfect for this week, just because of the wind. It'll keep out of her way from flopping all over the place. But no, she's so consistent with these wedges. One thing that I admire most about Nelly and her golf swing is her spine angle. That spine angle does not move. We see a lot out of amateur golfers as they get vertical, they stand up from trying to help the ball up, or they dip down just to ensure that they're getting under the ball.
Yeah.
Hers doesn't move. Hers is so steady. It just looks like she's pivoting perfectly. It is incredible to watch. It's one of my favorite things about her golf swing is her spine angle.
Yeah, and I think, when we talk about spine angle, it's almost like envisioning that you're in a barrel, so to speak, and you're turning inside the barrel, right? And if you moved up and down or side to side with your spine, you would hit into the sides of the barrel, right? So Nelly does a good job of turning into her body. She's not swaying back or swaying to the left and getting out of sorts. It's a turn back with her back facing the target, and then coming through and clearing the body out. And she stays very stable over the ball and never really moves out of her spine angle. A lot of the times amateurs might pop up and try to help the ball up and get out of their spine angle, maybe tense up with their shoulders or kind of come down and lower their body to try to make up for something that happened on the backswing. You can't do that. You got to rotate more around your body, around your spine, than moving up and down.
Yeah, Nelly actually had a neck injury earlier this week when she was practicing on the golf course, hitting out of this thick rough. It just goes to show how thick this rough is, and the approach to how she practices in warm-up doesn't change when she has this injury. And I would say she probably wants to make sure she's not going to tweak it any further. She's got a lot more golf to play, so keep things probably a little bit more simple. Maybe trying to swing a little bit easier on the driving range to conserve her energy, to conserve her neck, because I'm sure she's as consistent as she is. She will be hitting it out of the rough again. But you can see Nelly keeps looking up at the top tracer as well, even though she has a launch monitor in front of her. I think she's liking what she's seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And I think the top tracer allows her to see the flight of the ball too, and how these balls are flying and how far they're flying, so that I know when I'm out on the golf course that I can make sure to I have my distances are dialed in right. And so the launch monitor at her feet and the top tracer on the board, between the two of those things, she's got a lot of data at hand, and her caddy can kind of decide, well, this is how far this club is going today in these conditions. And I think that's a good lesson for those at home, is like, you might hit your wedges this far, in a perfect condition environment, but when it's 10 to 15, 20 mile an hour winds, it's hot, it's humid, it goes a little bit further. So when you get to the range before a round, those are the distances that you hit your ball, right? You might say, oh, I hit my driver 300 yards all the time. It's like, well, maybe today it's 270 or 260 because it's into the wind. So nothing to worry about. You just need to make sure that it's dialed in, and that's what Nelly's doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. She's so fun to watch warm up.
Looks like she's tuning into our range session.
I think she is.
She's like, oh, these guys are terrible.
She's like, let me get some swing analysis right now. But one thing, I don't know about you guys, sometimes I'm a little golf swing nerd, and when I go to these major championships, I like to sit on the range for a while rather than watching the live golf. And I think this is definitely a swing that I would come to the driving range to watch. I mean, I would pay so much money to have that golf swing. It's crazy to think how even a swing like hers, she has misses. And that just goes to show golf is not a game of perfect. You just have to play with what you have. As much as I'd love to have Nelly Korda swings, I know she hits some shots that I'm sure she wouldn't be too happy with as well, but she's so consistent, she's so stable. She has a lot of lag, a lot of space between her hands and her body as she takes the club away and up to the top. A lot of times we see amateurs break down their arms at the top of their backswing. Their hands get really close to their head. Look at how far apart Nelly's hands are from her body when she's at the top of her backswing. There is so much space. There's so much of an arc with her backswing, and that's definitely something that you all need to note. It's not from her just picking up the club with her arms and her hands. She has a great shoulder turn. Obviously, she has a great lower body turn as well. But her shoulder turn with that posture is arguably perfect. I mean, you could see there's so much space there between her hands and her head. We don't like seeing those arms break down at the top, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the things that I've always loved about Nelly's swing is how her backswing is very on plane. There's not a lot of movement laterally. You're not bringing the club too far inside or bringing it too far outside. She's always been a player who is very neutral when it comes to her grip, her club path, her club face, and that really helps things stay consistent, right? Like if you start trying to change things with your hands or your arms or your lower or your upper body, and you're not doing the things that are the fundamentally sound things, that's when you can get into some trouble. So you see Nelly's grip there, it's neutral, her glove, the Nike logo is pointing directly at the target, but then when it comes back down, the Nike logo is covering that golf ball, right? And I think that's a good, if you maybe have a little bit more of a neutral grip, that's a good indicator that you're square at impact, is making sure that that glove returns right to where it was at address.
I know, we just saw her on her phone a little bit. I was wondering if she was putting in a question in our comment section below. Don't forget that comment section is open for any questions about Nelly, the golf course, any of these swings, anything about your own golf game. Please leave a comment and question down below. But as we mentioned earlier, right when Nelly got to her spot, she put that alignment stick down. It just goes to show the #1 player in the world still has targets in the driving range. She doesn't just go aimlessly. She always has something she's aiming at, she's pointing at. And so making sure that you are doing the same at home would be greatly appreciated. We mentioned that intermediate target earlier. Like I said, trying to find something close to your ball that is easy for your club face to point at, to aim at, and then setting up your body to that. I can't tell you how many times I see people trying to set up their body first, then the club face, and then you get all out of whack. So just making sure you have something close in front of you to aim at. A lot of these players do that out there, and you can see, that alignment stick is there. Some players don't like it so close to their feet; they almost feel like they're getting restricted.
Yeah.
So it's okay to have a little bit of space, as long as it's parallel to where your toes are. It's super important when you're working on alignment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we talked about, someone had asked a question about how do you work on your alignment. This is an hour or so, or less than an hour before your round, is not the time to be doing the alignment thing across your shoulders and making sure, like, you just want to have this one stick down and just make sure everything's looking okay. Maybe if it's out of sorts, you put the club across your shoulders just to make sure things are on point. But the alignment stick on the ground is not only maybe a good thing for your feet, it's also a good thing to, when you step behind the ball, and we saw her kind of doing that a little bit, closing one eye and visualizing her shot, it's also a good place to kind of visualize the target line, right, and where things are maybe going out on the golf course. And I think for Nelly today, a couple shots back, she's probably just trying to, I'm just going to play my game, and that's just consistent golf, hitting the fairways off the tee. She's a little bit longer of a player, but you can see here she's spending a little bit of time now on these shorter clubs. So how do I move up the leaderboard? I got to make more birdies. So I'm trying to focus maybe a little bit more on those wedges and those scoring clubs, dialing in my distance and making sure that I'm following my fundamentals too.
We're getting a lot of comments about Nelly's tempo and the lack of effort, basically. Her swing almost looks effortless. She's not trying to kill the ball. She's not trying to overswing. And that just goes to show, and she hits the ball far. So just showcasing, just because you swing harder doesn't mean the ball's going to go further. If anything, I'm sure you've had a PGA coach or somebody say, hey, maybe try to swing at this 70% and see where it goes. Obviously, you're going to hit it a little bit better, and then you're shocked. Oh my gosh, why am I not doing this every time? Look at Nelly Korda. She is not throwing her body at this ball. She's staying very stable, very smooth. She's very relaxed. I mean, when you're that good at golf, I'm sure it's a lot easier to be relaxed, but at the same time, that's just part of her golf swing, right? She has all that lag generating behind her body as she turns to the target. And like we mentioned earlier, lag helps generate power too. It's not just swinging harder. And you can watch right here with Nelly. Even, I know she just has a wedge in her hand, but at the same time, she's not tense, she's very relaxed, and she's not throwing too much effort over these.
Yeah, and I think too, another thing that we talk a lot about is generating power the right way, and she generates power by turning into the ground, right? Like when she turns back on this swing, her weight is going to her back right heel. It's stored there, and now we're going to turn through with my lower body on the ground, not up on my tippy toes or something like that, or coming out of my swing, but on the ground through the ball, right? So you see here, back to the right heel, and then back through, and then the right heel comes up because she's fully cleared out, right? And so, her swing looks effortless because she's finding the sources of power that make your swing look effortless, right? Like, if you're jumping up on your toes or swinging too fast, that's when, you're kind of out of whack and your tempo isn't good and it's not effortless, right? It takes a lot of energy to get back to the ball. She uses those power sources the right way, and that's how she makes her swing look so silky smooth.
Yeah, so we have a question. How does a golfer make a great tempo? You're kind of watching it here. I mean, she's
Yeah.
a great example of that, that's for sure. But yesterday we kind of talked about our quirky tips to make sure you have good tempo. For me personally, in my head as I'm taking the club back, I tell myself back, and then when I swing through, I say through. And it goes in the tempo of back and through. And if you really are like, I can't tell if my tempo's off or anything, I make students say it out loud. I make them say back and through out loud when they're swinging the club, because what a lot of times you hear is a nice smooth back and a very strained and almost angry through. So it's like a back and through. And once they hear that out loud, they're like, oh my gosh, like I am really throwing a lot of effort into that downswing. I'm trying to absolutely kill the ball. And you see more of that slow, fast motion with your golf swing. So definitely having something in your mind as you take the club back and through, that always helps. I had a good golf friend of mine. She says peanut butter and jelly, and that is just what she says to get her tempo. And I've never seen that girl be out of tempo. So some stuff like that absolutely helps. Getting somebody to watch your swing too. It could be a buddy on the range. It could be a PGA coach, just to tell you, okay, yeah, it looks like you're putting in a lot of effort in that downswing. That speed's picking up a little bit too much. Let's lay off a little bit. I always recommend maybe doing a quarter swing back, a quarter swing through, getting that tempo first, then going half swing back and through, getting that tempo. With those shorter swings, it's very easy to see when your tempo is off. So once you get your tempo down with these shorter swings, then going into full swing, you'll be a little bit more dialed with your tempo. What about you, Ryan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, if you're thinking of something to do, or you want something to do quick and easy, you could pull a second club out of your bag and just make a few swings with 2 or 3 clubs in your hands. And with 2 or 3 clubs in your hands, you're not trying to, swing as fast as possible, right? It's like really hard to do that with multiple clubs. So if you just swing back and through with 2 or 3 clubs, I think you'll start to feel what a good tempo feels like. It's not very rushed because you have more weight that you're swinging. And then take those 2 clubs away and try to hit 3 or 4 golf balls and feel that same swing you just made 3 or 4 times. And I think that's a really easy way to really dial in your tempo.
Yeah, and you can see somebody's working with Nelly on the driving range. It's not Jamie Mulligan, but it is an assistant of his. It is Jamie's eyes and ears when Jamie's unable to make it. So it's kind of cool that she has that extra resource there to help her through this. I'm sure Jamie gave his assistant some tips on how to get Nelly dialed for this. You can see Nelly's kind of going through some motions here with her impact position and what she's doing with her hands. And that's another very important thing to touch on here, is releasing the club. So many players don't really know what releasing the club is. I see a lot of chicken wings out there, people trying to feel like they're holding that club face square through impact, when in reality that club face is wide open. So you see her hands turn over, you can see that club face through impact is ideal. The one thing that I send to a lot of my students is actually photographs of Nelly's impact position and then post-impact position. Because you can see her forearms and her hands turn over post-impact, and that motion alone helps a lot of students see, oh, that's what my hands are supposed to do. I'm not supposed to just try to hold that club face square, when in reality, like I said, you're most definitely not holding it square at impact.
Yeah, now she's kind of rolling up through the bag a little bit here, working on what looks like a hybrid. And, one thing that I think, as we watch her here on the range before she heads out for her tee time, is she's just not, there's no real rush to anything, right? And I think that's a good mindset to be in before you head out on the course, right? If you get to your tee time, 5 minutes ahead of time, everything's a little scattered and rushed, and I don't know what I'm doing and how I'm going to swing on my first shot. I like to get to the course an hour, 45 minutes ahead of time, feel out where my golf swing is, hit a couple wedges like you saw Nelly did, go to the putting green, drink plenty of water, put on my sunscreen, make sure that I'm dialed in before I actually go out on the course, right? And I think that lends itself to better tempo, better rhythm, better fundamentals. You remember everything that your PGA coach told you versus just slamming your trunk and heading to the first tee. So.
Yeah, and a big thing she's probably working on right now is, as #1 player in the world, is her mindset as she goes into this round. She's 4 shots back right now. She's usually the hunted, not the hunter. So she's going to have to change her game plan a little bit just to figure out, okay, am I trying to get 4 strokes back, or maybe am I trying to get halfway there? You got to go in with expectations. These players are not going low here, and I think she's aware of that. So just getting a couple under par would be huge, because you can't assume that the top player on the leaderboard is going to continue to go low. This this course has some teeth to it. So I think she's going to play her normal game today, maybe try to get a couple extra birdies, like I said, get a couple shots back so she can move up that leaderboard. But her mindset right now is definitely, okay, I need to get a little bit more in contention. She's only 4 shots back, don't get me wrong, it's not out of it. But for Nelly's terms, she definitely wants to be a little bit closer to that top spot right now.
Yeah, and I think she knows who else is up there. Lexi Thompson's around the lead. Gino Thitikul is leading. And those are some pretty heavy names, heavy hitters, major champions and stuff. So, and obviously Nelly's won this tournament before, this KPMG Women's PGA Championship in 2021 at Atlanta Athletic Club, sorry. And she's trying to kind of maybe feel like what's that like again. I haven't won a major championship this year. That's probably a little bit of an unfamiliar place considering how well she played last year for her. So, but she's not far back, and I think Fields Ranch East today and through the weekend is rewarding good golf shots, right? That's what hard golf courses do. We saw that last week at the U.S. Open. We've seen that at other golf courses around in major championships. Good shots are rewarded on hard golf courses, and someone who can hit a lot of good shots, you're watching her right now, Nelly Korda. So I think, not too far back, but needs to kind of maybe put the foot on the gas a little bit to make sure that she's not too far out of the lead or too far out of it come Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. We always want to see Nelly Korda in contention here, and she's already at her driver. Some players go through their bag faster than others. I mean, we see some players work on irons and wedges for an hour before they even touch their driver. So, Nelly, we can hear the sound of the ball coming off the driver because she's right by us now. But like we said, so consistent. She is so dialed. She's looking at that top tracer technology to see what her ball flight's looking like as she hits into this driving range. Like we mentioned earlier, that driving range is still dead into the wind. You see that KT tape starting to bother a little bit. That wind is blowing it off the back of her neck. So the combination of
an extra layer.
Right. The combination of the heat that we're feeling right now, there's obviously a lot of humidity. On top of that, we are getting major gusts of wind right now, and so she hasn't even teed off yet. She's just getting a taste of what she's going to have out there because that golf course is wide open. Not a lot of trees, not a lot of things to block that wind, so I'm sure she's working on fighting that ball a little lower. You can see she's teeing it up a little bit lower as well.
Yeah, and you see there that no matter what the wind is doing or what the conditions are, that I'm always making a full finish. That's an important part when you're playing into the wind or with wind, is that you're not, yesterday Abby had a great line, swing easy when it's breezy, right? And I think, obviously Nelly, swing easy is her DNA, right? But you don't want to rush too far to the finish, right? You don't want to be too fast and try to, power it through the wind. You want to be, tee the ball down a little bit on your tee shots. Hit a little bit of an abbreviated follow through on the follow through there, and maybe take an extra club if you're playing a par 3. And so now you see, I like this. She goes right from a driver to, I just hit that driver, so.
Would she have 3 drivers? She really did not feel like she had to work on that at all.
Yeah, so now she's going to a shorter club and just working on some shorter distances, right? So maybe there's, there's a couple holes out there that she might get a good breeze behind her and hit it pretty far, and then she's got a shorter club in her hands, right? Maybe a shot around the green. So, but it's also important, Fields Ranch has some very interesting greens, so you need to be dialed in with these shorter clubs and these pitch shots so that you can get it close to the hole and save par or make a few birdies.
Yeah, absolutely, and like we mentioned earlier, there is quite the crowd here at the driving range watching Nelly warm up, and I hope they're taking notes as well, that she went from a driver back down to a wedge. We mentioned this yesterday, you have to bring your swing back down to earth after hitting a bunch of your longer clubs. So going back to a wedge, going back to those shorter swings, just getting that feel back is super important when you finish up a practice session. But watching the difference of these practice sessions with all of these players is just incredible, because as Nelly finishes up, she came here after Lydia Ko. Lydia Ko is just now getting to driver. She was on woods for a while. Obviously, she warmed up her body on the driving range for a very long time. Lydia's just now getting to driver, and Nelly's walking off the practice range. So it's cool to see what these players work on and what their routines are as they get ready for this next round of the KPMG Women's PGA Championship.
Yeah, no doubts. And, I think Nelly is probably practicing a lot of, patience and not trying to hit too many golf balls before she goes out and plays. She wants to make sure that she's at peak performance and I'm not hitting all my good shots. on the range. I want to hit them out on the golf course, and with that, the neck issue from earlier, she wants to make sure that she's not overdoing it, right, or overcooking it. Especially, it's still hot out here, although the breeze kind of helps maybe keep the heat down a little bit. It's still pretty hot out here, so you need to hydrate, and maybe she's just trying to, a little bit of a precaution there, and, we'll see how she does. I'm really curious to see if she can go up the leaderboard a little bit.
Yeah, next up we're going to actually take a look at our current leader, take a look at Gino to see what she's doing and how she's warming up with the lead. Now, I did just take a quick look at the leaderboard, and Lexi is right there, so it'll be pretty cool to see how she handles that, somebody being just one shot back right now. I'm not sure how Lexi's finishing up, but 3 under today. Having Lexi Thompson right behind you is probably a little bit intimidating, but she's coming off of a recent win as well. She was predicted to do very well this tournament. She was predicted to win this tournament, so it's cool to see how she'll warm up, how she'll prepare for her round 2 following up her lead.
Yeah, no, and I think Gino's been someone that a lot of people have thought that she could be near the top of the leaderboard during a major. And I think it's exciting to see her kind of be in contention here with, obviously Lexi's right behind her, and Nelly, and others kind of behind as well. But yeah, Gino is one of those players that is a rising star, and she's got a great golf swing. We did I saw an analysis of her from a fellow PGA coach, Justin Kraft, that he did earlier on the PGA of America social channels, and just kind of walking through Gino's swing a little bit. Talked about the routine, the pre-shot routine. That's a really important thing that a lot of these players focus on, but also talked about the backswing and how she clears out very nicely, right? And that's a common theme that we've talked a lot about, is making sure that you're dialed in with that backswing, but also your follow-through. So interesting to see how Gino does today.
Yeah, I mean, how can we not talk about how she putted yesterday? About 200 feet of made putts. Like, that is unheard of here. These players are really struggling on these greens, not only with speeds, but I've seen a lot of misreads, and she just had the ball rolling yesterday. Gino's been a fun player to watch. It seems like nothing phases her either. She started out a little bit, and then she really got it back, which is awesome to see that she's able to do that. Do you think she's maybe feeling any sort of pressure going into this round with the lead, or do you think, I've been here, I've done that? Yeah,
I think she wasn't exactly accurate, I say. I think the putter saved her a little bit yesterday, but it was also the reason she's in the lead, right? So I think anytime you got a hot putter, that's a great thing to have going into the lead or wherever you're at on the leaderboard. Is it just takes a weight off of your shoulders, because you're able to know that I'm playing well on the greens, I'll be making a lot of birdies, you're making a lot of putts. So
absolutely. And as Gino walks off the range here, we're going to finish up our coverage of the live look-ins on the driving range and point you into the direction of the featured group that she will be in with Nelly Korda as well, and Lydia Ko. I mean, what a star-studded group. That is going to be such a fun group to watch, so be sure to follow that featured coverage. We will be back tomorrow with more live look-ins on the driving range here at the KPMG Women's PGA Championship.